Alright, this second part's going to be a little shorter because, well, a number of things could go into this, but maybe I could talk longer, but I'll try to keep it to a minimum of 9 minutes or so. So, here we go. With effeminate male characters in Final Fantasy, I would think the first example was Faris in Final Fantasy V, although, admittedly, Faris as a character in Final Fantasy V may be more important than I'm thinking because I haven't seen the full walkthrough because H.C. Bailey is still doing it. But Faris, already initially I was noticing that he's probably the first instance where we have someone confused for a female, although that might be one of the few instances in the whole Final Fantasy series that I can think of where a character has been thought it was female, or male actually, never mind, I'm getting reversed. It was thought as male, but actually turned out to be a female. But then again, there are also all the reverses there, somewhat. But in 6, there's not so much that I can recognize. I mean, Kefka might be argued, but then again, Kefka could be argued to be a friggin' transvestite or something, but maybe not. Maybe he just likes his makeup, which is, I don't know. I may have to unfortunately skip 6 in terms of this observation, but Kefka's the closest we can get. He has the lipstick going on, which makes him at least pseudo-effeminate in one respect, which is perfectly fine, but because they wanted to keep that in there. Anyway, 7... Well, yeah, something just occurred to me with Cloud, of course. He cross-dresses in a little sequence in the game, but other than that, the closest I can find is in the Advent Children movie, Final Fantasy VII Advent Children, where we have Sephiroth. The reason why he probably looks so effeminate is possibly because of the fact that, one, they were doing computer animation, and they wanted to make him look cooler, which in turn made him look more effeminate in one respect. But the other theory, of course, that's coming to mind is that he was Kadaj, essentially turned into Sephiroth, and Kadaj has a decidedly effeminate look to him as well. Then again, the fact that 2 of the 3 Sephiroth incarnations in Advent Children look very effeminate attests to Sephiroth himself actually looking like that. I mean, the animation we get from Amano, I believe, doesn't have him look exactly effeminate. I mean, the long hair, sure, but his facial features are very masculine looking as far as my estimation goes. But there's not much else to speak about in Final Fantasy VII in terms of effeminate males, or masculine females for that matter. 8, people might argue Squall kind of looks girly, and maybe Irvine as well I can go with, but they both have decidedly masculine kind of features. I mean, especially Squall, although Squall has his furry collar jacket, which some might argue is a little effeminate. But to go to a more effeminate character might be Laguna, because even his facial features do have kind of a feminine smoothness to him, just a little bit, but doesn't mean Laguna's a wimp or anything like that. He does have his moments, but Laguna's a cool character, I'll admit. Now, if we have the reversal, we have a masculine female in Adele, who, yeah, is very, very kind of muscular looking and that sort of thing, which, for a sorceress, makes Adele look really, really creepy. Although that was probably the intent. Adele is meant to have this kind of fear factor because she's the first sorceress in a long while. Or a sorceress that actually did something, like take over an entire city or something. On to 9, which is very, very, what's the word? Infamous for the feminine males in 2 cases, Zidane or Zidane and Kuja. Now, Kuja, to my estimation, I don't think I ever thought of him as female, but if anything I noticed, yeah, this guy looks pretty feminine. I'm pretty sure he's supposed to be a guy, but then again, I was probably open to the fact at that point. I mean, if it had been a female, actually, I wouldn't have cared. A female final boss. Try saying that 3 or 4 times fast. A female final boss would have been a nice twist because of the fact that, you know, it wasn't really something that was happening back then. Maybe Ultimecia, that was the closest we got. Ultimecia is kind of a bitch anyway, but I guess Final Fantasy VIII is popular for that reason. It actually has a female for a final boss instead of a male, which is what we have with even with the actual final boss in Final Fantasy IX, although that's a bit debatable. But Kuja is decidedly very infamous because not only the fact that his appearance, facial-wise and everything, looks very effeminate, but he dresses very effeminately, you could argue. Yeah, that doesn't make him a silly character at all. It actually makes him more intimidating, somewhat. But then again, there's also, I don't know, he has an interesting feel to him because of the fact that he views himself as he has a kind of a narcissist. Yeah, if anything, he has a narcissistic kind of complex of one sort or another. But he's very, very tough, admittedly, because Bahamut shoots him with a mega flare, doesn't do jack shit to him except scratch his forehead a little bit. And his, of course, people might argue, of course, the other thing, I mean, his trance mode makes him look even more effeminate with the feathers and everything, but frankly, I mean, he may probably be the most infamously feminine character in all of Final Fantasy history. Next to maybe Kefka, but Kefka isn't insane enough that people didn't care. Kuja, on the other hand, was a little less insane and a little more narcissistic, maybe. But either way, moving on to 10 and 10-2 in tandem with each other, interesting, because they're, I mean, feminine characters wise in X we have Tidus and Seymour, even though both of them have admittedly have undergone changes, it would seem, or adjustments. But then again, I think the artist at that point wasn't Amano anymore. It was, I'm not certain, but I know Amano had probably, I think practically Amano had shifted from being a Final Fantasy artist to an artist for a different company entirely, I think. So at this point it was a different artist, but then again, it would have been a different artist as early as 7, I think. Either way, the effeminate qualities in Tidus and Seymour are a lot of times you can observe more in their lips, but also in kind of their smooth facial features. But regardless, neither of them is admittedly very effeminate in behavior. Maybe Seymour a little bit, because he has kind of a narcissism slash freaking messiah complex or some shit. Especially a messiah complex of one sort or another, I would venture to diagnose him with. But yeah, now in X2, not much in terms of effeminate characters. The closest might be Shuyin, who's kind of a Tidus clone of sorts. But other than that, I've really covered a lot of it. I mean, Nuge, Barreleye, and Gipple are all pretty masculine, even if Barreleye and Gipple might look a little effeminate. It doesn't matter. They got masculine behavior out the wazoo pretty well. Now I can't really go much further. Now 12, admittedly, from what I remember, does have Vaughn, the Sky Pirate, he has kind of a Tidus effeminate thing going on, where his facial features are very smooth and womanly, but it doesn't matter. Vaughn is a Sky Pirate. Then again, we've had an interesting parallel here. We have a reversal. Vaughn is a effeminate-looking male character, confirmed, I believe. I haven't played Final Fantasy 12, but I'm pretty sure Vaughn is a male. Faris, on the other hand, is actually, I'm guessing Farissa, the other princess of Tycoon in Final Fantasy 5, but she was thought to be a male. I'm guessing she, behaved like a male all the time. I'm wondering about the pirates in Final Fantasy 5. Did they know she was a fucking female when they picked her up in the wreck? Or did they just think, oh, she behaves too much like... But yeah, I mean, HC Bailey noted, yeah, I guess if you're like 5 or 6, there's not much of a difference. You could just treat her as a male and it wouldn't make much of a difference. It's kind of like raising a male child as a female because of the parents' own decision, or the whole selective sex change surgery, those sorts of things that happen at birth. But regardless, this has been a nice little rant ramble. I hope you can actually hear me. I hope I'm not mumbling. I'm always practicing that kind of projection of my voice and all. Anyway, this has been the second part and probably the final part to female and feminine in Final Fantasy. Try saying that 4 times fast. Anyway, see you later.